All right, welcome back. I hope you're having an awesome time so far. Our next speaker is Fernando Schwartz. He is the AVP Global Head Data Science, HH Commercial at Merck. Please join me in welcoming Fernando to our virtual stage.
Hey, Fernando.
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of AI4 and all of the attendees. We are delighted to have you here. So without any further ado, we'll just jump right into the Q&A. Patricia, if you have the first question. Okay, Fernando, what is your job title and what do you do in your role currently?
Well, thanks, Daniel, for the invitation. I'm excited to be part of this great event. I'm hoping that the participants are having a great day today. So what is my job title and what do I do in my role? Well, let me just start by saying that my current role is Global Head of Data Science at the Human Health at Merck. That's my title, Associate Vice President. But this is a new role. And so what do you do in your role? There were some ideas around what that means, but the truth of the matter is that we're still working that out. I started this role mid-pandemic in July of last year. And I think this is a journey that I'm still trying to figure out exactly how does this line up. In the meantime, we're trying to basically push data science, machine learning and AI initiatives across the board, and push them as far and as forward as we can.
I see. And so was this role, you're the first person to be stepping into this role, if I understood you correctly, which is why it's so confusing, basically.
That's correct. So I think that, if you think about, pharma industry today, especially in the commercial space, there's, we at Merck are driving what we're calling a transformation. So we want to change the way we work. And we believe that change sort of in the analytics space revolves around several items. So among those are bringing sort of the traditional tech talent in-house. And so part of the job description is sort of transform and modernize the way we work, and also add the capabilities that tech talent would bring into the space. So it is a journey because it's super competitive out there, but we're filling in that, I think, that talent gap, and trying to reshape the way we work has been primarily the focus here.
I see. Excellent. Thank you very much. Patricia, I want to jump to the next question. Okay, great. So in line with all that you just mentioned, what AI projects are you currently working on? Very interested in your thoughts here.
Absolutely. So if you look at pharma companies, there are several. In the case of Merck, at least we have 4 divisions. And my role currently is focusing in the commercial human health division. So I'll just maybe stay the course there, but maybe we'll have a chance to discuss a little bit broader. Within commercial, you can think of the landscape of problems that can be tackled using machine learning or AI, if you like. It ranges. And the way I like to think about this is it really depends on, for instance, you can think about it in terms of throughput. That is to say, the number of decisions that you need to make on a given period of time. So when you're thinking about, let's say, optimizing the use of our marketing resources to achieve our goals, sales goals, that you can think of is a topic that revolves around making maybe millions of decisions per week, if you like, when it comes to like reaching out to our partners. And so that is really fertile ground for sort of adding some layer of intelligence to those decisions that maybe traditionally has been revolved around sort of rules. So when you go from rules-based decision making to adding some predictive elements to it, you're talking about getting smarter as to how do you use your marketing budgets, and you are able to more personalize more messaging and optimize that. So there's a whole range of work that revolves around like the marketing side of things. But we're also working around the lower throughput where type of problems where we're thinking about, hey, we need to, for instance, generate forecasts, understand forecasting better over product lines. This forecast, may be produced, quarterly or biannually. So it's not like you need to make, decisions in split seconds. So there, the question is, how do you incorporate sort of the key elements of these large data sets that we have in-house, maybe acquired through third-party vendors? How do you incorporate data elements and predictive elements into these forecasting activities? And how do you do it in a way that it's sustainable and you can iterate quickly? So I would say there's like sort of two big lines that can be separated, by the throughput of the problems, but basically touch upon marketing and forecasting as like the main issues that we're tackling right now.
I see. Yeah, thank you very much. So of marketing, between marketing and forecasting, where it sounds like you've done most of your work so far, and I know you're kind of early days here, where have you seen the greater value? What has been the outcome so far?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we're early in the game. So some former colleague used to say that the difference between AI and ML is that AI is in PowerPoint and ML is in Python. So we are kind of transitioning from AI to ML in some sense here. So we've been discussing about, hey, this is the plan. How do we do this, right? And as we build out the teams, we are able to sort of start deploying around these high value issues, high impact, high value problems that we're tackling. We're starting small, but aiming big. So we may, for instance, think about focusing on a specific market or specific use case, like kind of narrow focus to try to showcase sort of the technologies, how they work. So both in the forecasting area and in the marketing area, we're seeing some significant sort of initial signal where we're seeing, value and uptick. But, this is we're just getting sort of started at this level, at least.
I see. And it's really interesting. Right now, you're talking a lot about building out teams, the prioritization of different goals, right? Like what steps how do you organize your thinking? Because there are a lot of organizations that are probably watching this right now that are also early days in whatever their organization is, right? So how do you structure your thinking in this scenario? How do you build that? Yeah, whatever.
I think that's a great question. I think that as an industry, we're figuring that out, and the repercussions go from even organizational design. What is the type of organizational design that you need to support these analytics roles, right? So this is somewhat new. Other industries, so tech industry was sort of built around this kind of capabilities, but in pharma, where we've had like structures that date back to hundreds of years, like how do you make room for this new capability and this new source of talent? And so there's that question, right? There's also the urgency, because we know that we need to move fast. So that transition and that transformation, I think, is really what goes occupies the thought of myself and sort of the leaders in my space. How do we do this in the most effective, quickest, best possible way? And I think that we have some ideas. Luckily, myself and other people in the team have had, kind of a broad range of experience. So I think that, we can throw some kind of key elements that would help you figure this out. But, having had experience in industries that have sort of themselves transformed using sort of this type of technologies, maybe could help you sort of drive some of that understanding. But again, I don't think that no one in industry, at least in pharma, has solved. I don't think anyone has solved this problem, but we all have like pretty good ideas as how to do this. So for instance, I mean, and again, maybe I'm answering longer. You mentioned about prioritizing, right? So how do you prioritize work? So from the angle of throughput, you can kind of come up with strategies, and you can think about like what are the strategies for the different type of problem sets. So again, if you think about high throughput problems, you may want to go the automation route. And if you think about sort of low throughput problems, you may want to go in the sort of enablement of fast iteration route. And so how do you get away with that? This is kind of where it's at right now, I think.
Yeah, I see. And to your point about having a diverse set of experience, I know you actually were a mathematician originally. Is that correct?
That's
So how
right.
did you
Yeah.
find
So,
your way to the pharma world? I'd be curious to hear you tell us about it.
yeah, I mean, I have found that, most people that I talk to in the space, I mean, they, have not had like a straight line trajectory, and they've been kind of all over the place. And this is definitely my case. As you mentioned, I'm a mathematician by training, and I actually stayed in academia after I got my PhD in math, and eventually became a tenured professor. And at which point I quit, which is not so common, and went in the industry because I was working in data science, and I like to think that I had all of the science, but none of the data. So I actually went into online advertisement myself, of all places, which is building those ads that chase you. So partly to blame there for building those ads that chase you, but that technology that enables you to sort of show the right ad to the right person at the right time. I thought, hey, this is super interesting, but it's not so altruistic perhaps. And so I was wondering, hey, is there a way to take this technology and turn it into the technology that gives the right patient the right product or therapy at the right time? How do you do that, right? Is there such a technological play? That was kind of my internal motivation. And so that's kind of when I made the hop ultimately into healthcare.
I see. Thank you so much. Patrick, I want to jump to the next one. All right, so perfect segue. Let's talk more a little about healthcare and pharma. What are the most impactful use cases of AI in pharma? And I know you mentioned you're currently focusing on the commercial side, human health, but feel free to talk about whatever you like.
Amazing. Yeah. So I think that, I mean, pharma companies are large companies, like Merck is a massive company, right? So the opportunities to deploy these advanced analytics or machine learning solutions across the company are everywhere. And so as you said, right, from the lens of the commercial space, I kind of described a little bit about what we're doing, but this is not really restricted only to commercial space. And again, if you take the same lens of throughput, and maybe you can pair that with sort of complexity, right? So you can think of, hey, what are the high throughput issues? What are the highly complex issues that you want to solve in pharma, and where can you deploy technologies there? So for instance, in research, in MRL, Merck Research Labs, right? The type of problems that we're trying to do there is maybe sometimes finding molecules. So there's a lot of promise around using machine learning to sort of find molecules that may have strong impact on the type of products that we build. So that's the whole sort of world in of itself, where sort of there's been very interesting advances, and I think that it's a very promising area. It's not I mean, it's a little bit of a new thing, right? I don't think that we've seen yet. We haven't reaped like the full benefits, but everyone's betting that that area will really explode at some point when we start figuring out how to use this sort of techniques to solve this complex sort of chemistry problems, right? Molecule design. If you hop into manufacturing, there you have like this high throughput situation where you have sort of an industrial process, and things that can supply chain, right? Supply chain. Machines that can fail and whatnot. So how do you build like into this there's a lot of data collection points, and then of course there's a whole like range of sort of machine learning techniques that can be applied there to sort of optimize the production side of things, and also look at supply chain and how do you manage your products across the world, distribution and whatnot. I mean, this is kind of right Amazon's kind of type of problems, right? We have sort of like the biology, chemistry type of world problems. We have the Amazon's type of problem, like in terms of like delivery and build the products, and then we have the commercialization type of problem. So it's a pretty rich environment.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you. So you have used the word throughput several times now. And, for those who may not be as familiar with that, it seems like a really important component of how you choose to prioritize work and identify potential solutions for your team. So, what's going on with that, I guess? And what would you say about throughput?
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, you're spot on. It's not necessarily a commonplace word that maybe deserves a little more attention, because when you think about machine learning, it's natural and human-like to think about just one decision, right? So think about machine learning, and machines are helping you make decisions, right? But the value, I mean, if you look at a one decision, right, in of itself, it's very easy to dismiss like the value that machine learning would bring into the equation, because the decisions are very, very simple. The problem is like when you scale this decision to having to make, let's say, 10 million decisions in 1 minute, you will find that no human can possibly do that, right? You cannot physically make 10 decisions in a minute, right? But a machine can do it. So only through the sort of contrast of like one decision, but also where does that fit and what's the environment in which this decision is being made, you kind of get an impression like, okay, if I can tweak a little bit and be a little smarter as to how do I make 10 million decisions per minute, there may be interesting benefits there, right? So I can kind of, again, think about personalization. When you talk about personalized medicine, we tend to think like, yeah, it's going to be personalized to me, but actually what you're trying to do is personalize to everyone at the same time. And that's kind of where you land in the problem of like, how do you do that? Because again, you have large number of decisions to be made in a small amount of time. And so the question of like the number of decisions per time unit is naturally inherent, I think, to the problem. And that's what I'm referring to as throughput. How many decisions you need to make at a certain by time period. So that really drives the sophistication and the potential value of your solutions in a very transparent way, if that makes sense.
I see. And then circling back to your current focuses, you mentioned, marketing, for example, as being a really high number of decisions in a short period of time, which is why, of course, you're focusing so much on that, just to clarify.
That is correct. Yeah. So think about it this way, right? So how do we, one of the questions that we think about is, and not just us, right? All pharma companies, right? So what would happen if we have an amazing product, right, that can save lives, and only 5 people know about it? I mean, that's like the saddest thing ever, right? Like our mission as a company is to improve individuals' lives, but how do you go to improving like the most in people possible when you have like a new discovery or a new product, right? So how do you bridge between these two? And this is how kind of you use everything you have in your power, but you want to reach out to a bunch of individuals in a way that will resonate and will help them get into your get them the products that are going to be so beneficial for them, right? So marketing traditionally, like that's been the role of marketing. But again, if you want to try to dig a little deeper and personalize marketing and make sure that the products are reaching the right individuals, you now fall into like, hey, how do you get the right product to the right person at the right time? And that somehow resembles the online advertisement question. Like, how do you when you open your favorite social media platform and there's a product there that you didn't know you needed, but now when you see it, it's like, oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted, right? In a sense, it resembles that flavor. But I'll have to say that it's much more complicated. And here there's another concept that maybe we can talk about. Just like throughput, there's another concept that's unique to healthcare. Throughput maybe not so much.
What is that concept?
That is the concept of the longitudinality of or the journey. So I would say why is healthcare perceived, at least, as so backward, so behind in technology compared to other industries? I think that there's a reason for this, and the reason is that the type of problems that we want to tackle are harder, and I'll tell you exactly what I mean. So in sales and general advertisement, what you're after is what's called intent. So if I see somebody on the street and I love their sneakers, there's a period of time where I will. So if someone says, hey, here's the same sneaker with a 50% off coupon, I'm going to buy it, right? So So intent is a short-lived emotion that machines are really good at capturing. You're looking on the website, there's signals that are short-lived, and very quickly you can get sort of that intent captured and action on when you're doing business. So this is my personal take as to like why companies like Facebook, Google, right, make so much money in advertisement, because they have built all this technology around capturing intent and executing on that. When you think of healthcare and you want to do something sort of similar, it's more complex, because in healthcare you're not after intent, you're looking at the patient journey. So what you did 2 years ago, what color was the socks you bought 2 years ago, have no influence into like what you're gonna buy next week. But if you have some condition that appeared to you last year that has to do with your health, and maybe a medication didn't work, or maybe you have a comorbidity or whatnot, this type of things carry throughout your life. And so stitching up each patient's journey requires a much more complex solution than understanding intent. So healthcare journey is a much more delicate and sophisticated proposition than intent. And so I think technology is kind of, in a sense, we're trying to transport in technology that's built to capture intent to go into journey, and that has some inherent difficulties. And so this is kind of my interpretation of, I mean, it's super simplified, but why healthcare is not so advanced? I think it's because it really is harder.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing all that. That makes loads of sense, and I was totally unfamiliar with a lot of that. So thank you so much. Patrika, I'm thinking that we skip the fourth question and jump to number 5 since we're running short on time. All right, great. Yeah, so we have a few minutes left. Just moving forward, how do you expect AI in pharma to evolve? And I know we've talked about a lot in this session, so feel free to comment on any portion of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what we've talked about is the opportunity mostly, and maybe the challenges that lie in the technology. But there's a whole other space which is lurking in the background, which has to do with privacy and and in the whole privacy debate, right? So the opportunity is huge, but there's also the privacy question, and privacy and utility are kind of these two concepts that kind of go hand in hand. So what's going to happen? How is pharma going to evolve forward? I think that it's going to depend quite a bit into like the regulation that is being built. We already have a very uneven landscape. If you look at the regulatory side of like US versus, let's say, the European Union, you will see that access to data is completely different between one and the other, and everywhere else in the world. So how much value AI will be able to drive in healthcare, generally speaking, is directly tied to the ability to access data and maybe access this journey data. So it's going to be down to the regulatory bodies to kind of figure out what's the right balance between sort of innovation and regulation. But so I would expect that we will try to move as fast as possible in the most fronts, and hopefully convince people that, I mean, where to land between privacy and utility. Like, understand that when you're vouching for privacy, I mean, we're talking about like in the large scales, right? And say like, hey, no one can see any information versus you can see anonymized information. Like, where do you put the needle? That's going to be the ultimate driver of how far we can push this. But it's an exciting time.
Wow. I feel excited personally. Thank you so much, Fernando. Patrika, I think we're probably almost out of time, right?
Yep, we're just about to wrap up. So we'll go ahead and say thank you. Thank you to Dan for asking the questions. And of course, thank you so much to Fernando for sharing your incredible knowledge with us. I know the audience is giving you a huge virtual round of applause.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for having me. These are exciting times, and maybe I'll finish saying that my personal goal around pharma today is that individuals that were thinking of going to the typical tech industry now will think twice and come our way, not just to Merck, but to the healthcare industry, because we really need that talent. So please think hard and go after, meaningful problems.
Awesome.
Wow.
All right, audience, you heard him. Make sure you reach out to Fernando to connect on the platform. So for the audience, it's time for you to head to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and take some time to check out our amazing AI exhibits. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.